And then you guys wonder why I.
We'll call. Good morning. We'll call the. We're off to a great start. Call the meeting to order at 9:05 a.m. this morning. A couple of notes to start off. I just wanted to extend, on behalf of council, a thank you to our municipal intern, Jeremy Vandermeulen. Jeremy has served in that capacity at the county for well over a year now. I just want to thank Jeremy for his contributions and also just acknowledge our participation in that municipal intern program. And I think safe to say it was a great investment by the county to have that position. It's something that we found a lot of value in, and moving forward, I'm hopeful we can utilize that again. So just a big thank you to Jeremy, and wish him best wishes as he moves on to a new opportunity. Another thing I wanted to note is, as of yesterday, we launched the Frozen Food Bank fundraiser for the Coaldale and Pitcher Butte food banks, running from November 1st to 30th. If you are interested and are able, you can bring a non-perishable food or monetary donation to the Lethbridge office here at 905 4th Avenue South. Receive a ballot to enter for a chance to dunk the Reeve, myself, Tori Campbell, in a dunk tank in the early part of December. Staff is working on the details for that, but just want to thank council for their support in that. Obviously acknowledging just what's going on in the world, the reality. There's some obviously tough times out there, and like I said, if you're able to support this cause, I think it's a great opportunity to help right at home in our communities. So just wanted to mention that, and I believe that's all I have for updates. We move into our agenda. Before you have an agenda for the Thursday, November 2nd council meeting. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Lauren?
I'm going to move the agenda as presented for the council meeting of November the 2nd.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving down, we have two sets of minutes before us. We have the county council meeting minutes of October the 19th, as well as the minutes from the organizational meeting of October 19th. Are there any errors, omissions, anything arising from the minutes? Go ahead, John. Go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to move the adoption of the Thursday, October 19th council meeting minutes, please.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved for the adoption of the October 19th, 2023 council meeting minutes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. John?
I'd like to move the adoption of the organizational meeting minutes from October 19th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you, John. John has moved for the adoption of the organizational meeting minutes, October 19th, 2023. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And we can move down then to item D, our subdivision applications. We have 3 subdivision applications today. We can start with item D1, subdivision application 2023-0-117. With that, I will throw to our supervisor of planning and development, Hillary Jensen. Good morning, Hillary. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. This first subdivision application that we're here to review with you today for your decision is subdivision application 2023-0-117. This is a lot realignment application. The properties are located within the hamlet of Monarch, and they are looking to adjust the property line so that it better suits how the properties are currently being utilized. You can see on the air photo that we have, so there's 311 Victoria and 314 Empress, and there's a fence line that's kind of offset from the existing property lines. They would like to correct that. This is within their family, so both properties are owned within the same family, and so they would just want to kind of rectify that particular situation moving forward. And so with that, for context, I'll throw it to Steve for the planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning, everyone. This application in front of you is a property boundary alignment between two properties as described. Just east of Plaza Street there, the undeveloped Plaza Street, between Empress Avenue and Victoria Avenue. The proposal is to address the current land conditions of how the family members use these two separate titled properties. As you can see in the air photo there, the current south lot, which consists of lots 4 to 6 on a title, contains a modular home, while the adjacent north parcel, which is lots 7 to 13 on the registered plan, contains a single detached dwelling and some other improvements. So as Hillary showed you there in the air photo, what we're doing is moving that property line, which is the white line on the air photo there, up to the north, approximately 25 feet, so that it follows the fence line there just on the north side of a shed there on the property. So with this application, municipal servicing will not be affected or impacted by the property line adjustment, and the access to both titles will remain as is. The north title gets its access from Empress Avenue, and the south lot is from Victoria Avenue. As you can maybe see in the air photos there is an older dwelling on the north lot. It does encroach into the municipal roadway. That's an old historical situation. It'll be unaffected by the property line adjustment that's happening to the south between the two titles. So it's the municipality's prerogative where they just want to leave it alone until that disappears, or address it through an encroachment agreement or that type of a thing. Whichever is the best way the county wants to approach that. You have some discretion there of what you want to do on that. So on this application itself, there was no objections or concerns received during the circulation. None of the utility companies required any easements. Nothing's affected by the property line being moved. So this application does align with your realignment, property boundary adjustment, subdivision policies. As well, the resulting parcel sizes with the adjustment both exceed the minimum area of your land use bylaw for the Hamlet residential land use district. So on that basis, I have recommended approval to you. On the draft resolution there in front of you, there's the 4 conditions. The standard property taxes are paid and up to date, the development agreement's entered into. The third is that they just have to provide either a separation of title document or a plan in order to effect the subdivision and get it registered. And the fourth is a discretionary condition that if the county requests an encroachment agreement, that they have to enter into that. Or if not, the county can indicate that also if they just want to let it be for now. So with those 4 conditions, that would be my recommendation on an approval to you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. I'd open up to council for any discussion or any questions you may have. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where's that building that encroaches? Is there, I guess, what are the ramifications of not putting an encroachment agreement in? Because as I understand it, even if the building was to be destroyed or they would have to, anything new would have to conform with our current land use bylaws. So is there any downside to not having an encroachment agreement?
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Kurbis. Steve and I had discussed this particular situation. We have a number of these in the Hamlet of Monarch where they're historical houses. The right-of-ways, they were built wherever they wanted to build them. There's really no, like you said, Councillor Kurbis, it could be, once it was removed or changed, then they would have to meet the setbacks anyhow. And we assume that at some point in time that will likely happen with this particular residence, just given the kind of current state of it. And so you could, if council chooses, you could strike that particular condition from the application and just leave it as is, and then it would be addressed at the time of a future development. So if that answers your question.
Good job.
Well, not really. I'm just wondering whether there is any downside to not having an encroachment agreement in place.
No, there's no, the only thing is that the encroachment agreement puts it on the title. So say if they were to sell the actual residence as is, that would, you know, let the future landowners know that there is an encroachment issue. And it just lets them know that the landowner, existing landowner, know that the county has the right to request that it be removed within 30 days. I think there is a little bit of liability consideration with regards to having a formalized encroachment agreement. I mean, it's been here for 60, 70 odd years, but like I said, it's one of those situations where we have addressed them in the past as an encroachment agreement just to cover it off for future land ownership. And then the county's consideration if we're doing some road improvements or something that we could address that encroachment sooner rather than later.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question of curiosity. On the map, you have all little lot numbers on that. Is that from years gone by and there's just lots that are amalgamated into one now, or?
Correct.
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Hickey, so back when the Hamlet was originally created, they created these more narrower lots, so 25-foot lots. And so over time, they obviously became less desirable. People wanted larger parcels, so they just consolidated them together. So you'll often see in Hamlets where you'll have, block 2 lots 15 to 20 or 12 to 13. That's a common occurrence in all of our Hamlets. But Steve might, if he has something to add to that.
Yeah, just further to that, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you sometimes notice, but sometimes in my subdivision comments, I refer to a lot. Sometimes I refer to a parcel. A parcel is a combination of lots that have been previously registered that create a title. So in this case, if we have like lot 1 or lot 4 to 7, those are on a previously registered plan. And then if they're combined on a title, it becomes one title through land titles if we do it that way, through either a title document or a plan, and it becomes a parcel. So it's title to a parcel of land because it's an amalgamation. Sometimes on a survey plan for a large area, they're also referred to as parcel. But these were pre-registered, so the surveyors don't have to go out and survey the lots physically again because they're already created there. So just through the combining on a legal paper for land ties, what they call a consolidation of title document, we can take those, and they were already done this way in this case where they had lots 4 to 6 and 7 through 12. They were consolidated together, but because they're already on an old, 100-year-old registered plan, they don't need new lot and block plan numbers. They just combine the numbers to create the titles. Does that make sense?
Any other questions? Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the subdivision application 2023-0-117 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2023-0-117 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any discussion? Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge an error on my behalf. Sorry, I got a little excited this morning getting things going. I just want to acknowledge, in the true spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge all those who call this land home now and for thousands of years in the past. May we respect each other and find understanding together and recognize the benefits that this land provides to all of us. I also want to mention the 2 empty chairs to either side of me. Councillors Van Essen and Vanderveen are traveling and therefore unable to join us today, so just wanted to acknowledge that as well, and safe travels to them. Sorry about that. Sorry for missing that. We can move down on our agenda item to D2, subdivision application 2023-0126. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This next subdivision application for your consideration is to subdivide a just under 3-acre parcel from the existing title, the existing quarter section, being the northeast 12, 11, 24 west to the 4th. This particular parcel is located in the northwest part of the county. This is the first subdivision of this particular quarter section, and it does meet the county's subdivision criteria for a first parcel out. But with that, I will pass it off to Steve for the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this application is to take out a farmyard from the very northeast corner of the quarter section. It'll be the first subdivision. That yard is a long-established farmyard, contains a principal residential dwelling. Quonset, there's other farm outbuildings on the property. For servicing, they have their own private cistern, haul water system, and sewage is treated on site by an individual septic field. That's just to the north and west of the dwelling, and with the proposed subdivision lines, it will remain on the smaller title there with the acreage once subdivided. With this application, part of the referral, there are no issues regarding abandoned gas wells, confined feeding operations in proximity, or no provincial historic resources in the area. One of the items is that there's a potential wetland identified within the quarter section, just south of the yard on the agricultural portion of the land. As you can see in the photo here, with the dark green area there, identified there just along the east municipal roadway. This is identified on the provincial wetland mapping information. Part of this application, it was circulated to the provincial wetland water bodies division for comment. We haven't to this point heard back from them yet. So typically what happens in this type of situation is if the subdivision line itself was cutting through a wetland and they identified that a wetland, then typically a wetland assessment has to be done to determine what category of wetland that is, and if it's going to be impacted by the subdivision, and then either that wetland replaced or a compensation provided for it. In this situation, the yard, as you can see there, is to the north of the wetland, so it's not impact. The wetland will remain as is on the agricultural land, so there shouldn't be any special requirements. But we haven't heard back from Alberta Environment on that yet. That is something that the applicant will have to address if Alberta Environment asks them to do a wetland assessment or something like that on it. So for the subdivision itself, it does comply with your municipal subdivision policies under the isolated single parcel policy for a farmstead first parcel out subdivision. Their proposed 2.89 acre parcel size complies with the bylaw, and they do have all their self-servicing in place for it. So with that, there was no objections or concerns received on the application. At the time I sent out the agenda report, we hadn't heard back from all the utility companies. The ones that we had heard from, nobody required any utility easements on the application. So I have on this recommended approval to you with 5 conditions. That was the taxes paid and up to date, a development agreement entered into with the county if required. Third is that they have to provide a final plan of survey that corresponds with any approval granted here this morning. The fourth addresses the wetlands, and that's that the applicant completes any conditions as required by Alberta Environment or Public Lands in response to the circulation of the natural water bodies prior to finalization. And that the fifth was that any easements required by utility companies be established. So the fourth condition there is to address the wetland situation if Alberta Environment comes back here and requested them to do a wetland assessment or anything like that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary. Open it up to council for any questions. Go ahead, John.
No questions, but from my end, this looks like a very straightforward subdivision, so I'd like to move that subdivision application 2023-0-126 be approved subject to conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2023-0-126 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. move down to item 3 in our subdivision applications. Subdivision application 2023-0-128. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This last subdivision for your consideration is, we're back to the Hamlet of Monarch. This is a subdivision of the parcel in, just off of Empress and Alexandra Street in the Hamlet of Monarch. They wish to sever it, I think pretty much in, not quite in half, but to create a 0.13 acre title and a 0.39 acre, and then the remainder of the title, including, would make up the rest of the subdivision. This subdivision does meet all the county's criteria with regards to the lot size, and they have the ability to connect into the Hamlet servicing. As with the other one that we had in Monarch, this particular application does also have an encroachment issue. This encroachment issue has been, they do have an encroachment agreement with the county for this particular residence. This is a residence on the parcel, and it encroaches into the rear lane. You can kind of see how that's working in the back there. We did look at this previously and granted them an encroachment agreement, given the age and age of the house as it stands to date. With that, I will pass off the rest of the planning comments and recommendation to Steve.
So this application in Monarch, unlike the earlier one, which was property line adjustment, this is a subdivision of the one parcel, which consists of a number of multiple lots there on one title, and to create a new residential lot on the west side, which will consist of lots 17 to 20 on one title, and 15 and 16 on the east side will remain as the other title for that older dwelling at the back there next to the lane. This, again, is an older historic situation. There was a very older moved-in building there that was converted to a dwelling there that sits back towards the lane. So that, which is primarily on lot 16, and that will remain as part of the lot 15 and 16 title. And the proposed subdivision line will occur on the west side of the dwelling along the boundary of lot 16 and 17. So once subdivided, the new lot will be 100 by 115 feet in size for the west vacant lot, which is double your width of what's normally required. The applicants are proposing to construct a new dwelling on that west lot, and municipal servicing, water and sewer exists to the current residence, and the new west title will be serviced in the same manner through the Hamlet services. So this application does comply with your Hamlet residential land use district and the subdivision policies. The lots, both the remnant on the east there, which is lots 15 and 16, will meet the bylaw, and the new lot, as explained, will be double what's required, so it's fully in compliance with the lot sizes. During this application, there was no objections or concerns received on it. So with the utility companies at the time of the agenda report, the ones we'd heard back from didn't require anything. So with this application, I have recommended an approval to you with the 5 draft conditions in front of you on the resolution there. Again, with the standard 1 and 2, with the taxes being paid up to date and a development agreement entered into. The third addresses the infrastructure, the servicing of that west lot that will require Hamlet water and sewer services to be installed at the applicant's expense. The fourth condition is to deal with that. Again, this is a case where we have some pre-registered lots, so we can do a separation of title document and put those lots together by their current descriptions, so which would be lot 15 and 16 for the east title, and 17 through 20, I believe it is, for the west title. And then the fifth condition was just addressing the utility agency easement if required, because we hadn't heard back from them yet when I sent this out to you. But
Thanks, Steve. ahead, open it up to council for any questions, discussion, for your consideration. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no concerns on it, so I'd like to move forward, recommend that subdivision application 2023-0-128 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved that subdivision application 2023-0-128 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That concludes our subdivision applications for today. We do have a public hearing scheduled for 10 o'clock. So for the time being, why don't we move down on our agenda? F, department reports. F1, municipal development and infrastructure. F1.1, planning and development department, third quarter report 2023. I will throw again to you, Hillary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. This is my third quarter report for 2023. Just to provide Council with an update as to what's been going on in the planning and development department. In the third quarter, I'm sure everybody had the opportunity to look at the numbers in there, but I'll just kind of do some highlights with regards to what's been happening. So in the third quarter, with regards to the major projects that we've been working on the land use bylaw review and update. And so we had our second workshop with County Council in September, on September 14th, with regards to where Steve Hardy and I are at with regards to that review and update. And with that, and with Council has approved us moving forward with regards to our public consultation. So you may have noticed on our website and on our What's Happening Lethbridge County, we have posted a number of articles with regards to some of the proposed amendments. And so far we haven't received a lot of feedback on that, but we have had a number of people look at the application, and so we're hoping that once we have the draft out that we'll get a bit more engagement. We have had some news radio advertising on that also, so just trying to get the word out there as to what's happening with regards to the land use bylaw, as it does in fact impact all landowners within the county. So that's the major thing that we're working on right now. With regards to the Development Authority and our development planner, Nathan Hill, he has been working quite hard at all of our development permit applications that have been coming in. We've had 190 applications come in from January to the end of September. That is an increase from last year, not quite our 2021 numbers that we saw, but it is a substantial number of applications to review and circulate and make sure that everything is meeting the county's requirements. Of those 190, 174 development permits were issued, 4 were refused. 1 was refused on appeal, and then 2 were withdrawn, and 14 were currently in the review process. So of the permits that were issued, our breakdown is that for the most part, they are comprised of residential and accessory buildings. Accessory buildings would include things like personal shops, garages, solar arrays. We're seeing a lot of personal solar applications coming in, so people putting them in on their roofs or in their yards. That's becoming a very common application for this year. We did have a number of commercial and industrial applications coming in. That can include new builds, but also changes of use. So a bay in an industrial building comes up for a new user, say somebody else they want to put in storage versus doing a welding shop, something like that. Those are applications that come through us also. We had a few home occupations, 7 in total so far. We've had a number of agricultural buildings go up, so that includes our farm shops, hay sheds, potato barns. All of those applications fall under our agricultural buildings. And then 1 sign, 3 institutional, and 4 miscellaneous. In addition to looking at the development permits, Nathan also does the compliance letters. So when somebody wants to sell their property, typically a bank will require a real property report and a compliance letter from the county. And so far this year, we've had 27 requests come in. And the last thing for the Development Authority is looking at any land use bylaw complaints. And so this For this year, we've received 13 complaints that have been received and are either been investigated and resolved or are undergoing investigation. For building permits are issued by our park enterprises on behalf of the county. The permit breakdown is, I think it's gone down since last year. We haven't seen as many. It kind of reflects the previous year's applications. So we have seen 83 building permits, and then a number of, the most popular one are electrical and gas as people upgrade their systems and maybe renovate their houses. For the subdivision, so County Council acting as the subdivision authority has approved 25 subdivisions so far this year, and there hasn't been any refusals so far.
Hillary,
Yes?
where does that trend as far as year to year?
Subdivision applications, it's about average, I would say. You typically will get between, I'd say, around 30, 25 to 30. Some years we have, there's a flux of them, we might get 35. But I would say we're about on par from the previous years so far.
Thank you.
With the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, so anytime there's an appeal of, say, a subdivision or a development permit application, those go to either the local subdivision development appeal board, or they go to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, which is the provincial body that deals with appeals. This year we've had one appeal that was later withdrawn. That was earlier on in June, and then we had an appeal come in September, and that went to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, and that hearing was held at the end of September. And we did get the decision on that, and the Land and Property Rights Tribunal did uphold the appeal, which was to deny the application. So that application was refused. Yes.
Sorry, could you clarify that a little bit? As I'm reading this, we approved the development, and
We
then
did.
somebody came in and appealed it, and then the appeal board actually upheld our decision then?
Sorry, they upheld the appeal, so the development permit was ultimately refused.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird wording when it comes to appeals. You upheld the appeal or the decision. I think they should clarify how that works. My apologies. I'll make sure when I'm explaining it that it's clear too. With regards to bylaws or land use bylaws, so we've had 10 applications that have been either brought forward to council or are in process. That does include land use bylaw amendments, road closures, and we've had a number of road closures, and also area structure plans. Nothing has been refused by county council so far this year. Everything's been approved. Like I said, we've had a number of road closures this year, and that's just as things come up, people realize either that we notice something's happening on the property and we talk to the applicant about purchasing that, closing that property, or they come of their own volition and say, we want to use this roadway and don't see that it would be suitable as a county road anymore. The one bylaw that we did do, I guess that's not really land use related, but was the development authority bylaw, where we just clarified who's the development authority in Lethbridge County. And so that was just to clarify the roles and responsibilities. And the last thing that we have is the intermunicipal and external agency referrals. We've had 20 intermunicipal referrals, so we have 11 other municipalities that touch our borders. So anytime there's something going on along those boundaries, that impacts us, we get a referral. And so we responded to 20 of those, and we've had 13 NRCB referrals come forward so far this year, which is, I would say, a little bit higher than usual. Typically, it's not quite that high. For finances, we have the one notable, I don't break down everything with regards to finances until the final quarter report, and Jennifer does a good job with that in the financial reports anyhow. But we have received just over $272,000 in revenue from park enterprises with regards to the issuance of safety codes permits. It is significantly higher than it was in 2022. This dramatic increase in revenue is directly due to the Macclain's expansion. So just because of the scale and cost of that particular facility, that raised the building permit fees by quite a bit, so that's where we're seeing that. So that's not something that we would anticipate on a regular basis. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, if there's any other discussion or questions.
Thank you, Hillary. I'd open up to council. You have any questions or any comments? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Hillary, when you talked about Macclain's, is it, does one permit cover, like if they come in for an electrical permit, does one cover it, or do they need multiples, or, do you know?
Yes, typically they'll have one of so one building permit, one gas, one electrical. Everything usually is covered under one permit. I think with their building, they may have separated it into two, one for the foundation and then one for the structure itself. But typically, any development permit, even if it doesn't, regardless of scale, it's always, they try to capture it under one just so that they have that consistency moving forward.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Hillary.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the report. Thank you. Up to the council. If you'd like to, we can. If not,
Just for
I'm fine.
information, Mr. Chairman.
yeah. Go ahead.
I would move the report as presented by Planning and Development for the third quarter.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved to accept the third quarter planning report for information. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you.
Move down. F2.1 F2 Corporate Services, F2.1 Coaldale-Lethbridge Community Growing Project 2023 request. And with that, we have our Director of Corporate Services, Jennifer Place. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you today, it's a request from the Coaldale-Lethbridge Community Growing Project. They've made a request to council to waive the taxes on parcel Northwest 13920, west of the 4th, which is the parcel that was used for the 2023 Community Crop Growing Project. The taxes on that parcel, or the municipal portion of the taxes only, is $1,666.32. I know council's familiar with the growing project. They've come forward to council before with very similar requests in different locations where they've gone ahead with their growing project. Within the letter that they presented this year, they have stated that the project has raised over $200,000 locally in 2022, and to date approximately $2.296 million, and that the Canadian Food Grains Bank, which was started in 1983, as a whole has allocated over $1 billion towards ending global hunger. With the request, or what the recommendation is from administration, which meets the policy number 161 guidelines, is that County Council donate $500 per the Lethbridge County donations policy to the Coaldale-Lethbridge Community Growing Project with funding from the Council Donation Fund. And this aligns with previous direction that Council has given. I included 2 resolutions from previous years where the request has come forward. Of course, Council can waive the taxes completely if they choose to for this particular request, or provide a donation which is equivalent to the tax waiver that they've requested. However, both of those will set a precedent, I guess, for future requests as a con. The pro would be that it would eliminate the portion of the costs or taxes incurred by the Coaldale-Lethbridge Growing Community Project, if that was the decision that council were to make. The financial impact, of course, with waiving the taxes completely would be that $1,666 in tax revenue.
Thank you, Jen. How would you like to proceed? Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, I support the recommendation of donating the $5 or $500 as we've done in the past. Waiving the tax would set that precedent, and it would be would open a whole can of worms for us. So I think that moving forward, I'd recommend that we do the $500. If anybody else had any comments.
Anything else from council? Would you like to make that motion, Councillor Sayers?
Yes. So I would move that the county council donates $500 per the Lethbridge County donations policy 161 to the Coaldale-Lethbridge Community Growing Project with funding from the council donation fund.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved a recommendation that county council donate $500 per the Lethbridge County donations policy 161 to the Coaldale-Lethbridge Community Growing Project with funding from the council donation fund. Any discussion? If not, call a question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Just like to acknowledge Chair Ed Donkersgood and the committee's work. You know, the letter speaks for itself. The hard work of a small group of individuals and everyone that comes together at seeding, harvest, spraying throughout the year. The family that was generous enough to participate and rent that land. All the input suppliers, everybody that makes us come together every year. Just want to acknowledge all the hard work that goes into that, and they are making a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Maybe one more item before we take a break before our public hearing. We can move down in correspondence. G1, Legion Remembrance Day Committee, invitation to attend Remembrance Day Parade and service. Attached, there's a letter that was addressed to the Reeve requesting attendance to the Remembrance Day service 2023. I've previously committed to attending the Coaldale Remembrance Day ceremony, so I will be unable to attend. So just looking to council to see if there's somebody that is willing to attend and represent the county on that day.
I'd be happy to go with nobody else.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
And,
Go ahead,
along
Morris,
with
yeah.
that, what day is that again, on November 11th? That's on a
This
Saturday,
this is
right?
on the Saturday. Yep.
And are they having it on Saturday, both places like Pitts Butte and Coaldale?
Coaldale is for sure. I'm not sure what Pitcher Butte is doing.
I believe that those ceremonies are always held on the 11th.
But usually,
Yeah, that's what I believe too.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, the confusing part in Lethbridge are there are two.
Yeah.
One at the Cenotaph and one over at the Pavilion.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're able to do that, that's great, Lauren. Thank you. Okay, with that, why don't we take a 10-minute recess? We can reconvene at 10 o'clock for our public hearing. Thank you, everyone. We'll call the meeting back to order at 10:02 a.m. this morning. We move in our agendas to item E, public hearings. We have one public hearing for today. Bylaw 23-023, redesignate Plan 23-10510, Block 1, Lot 3 in the southeast 41123, west of the 4th, from rural commercial to business light industrial. As mentioned, that is our public hearing for today. So we'll recess our regular meeting for the time being. We are here today to hold the public hearing for Bylaw 23-023. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing. Lauren?
I would make a motion to open bylaw 23-023 to a public hearing.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved to open the public hearing for Bylaw 23-023. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. The public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. This public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. The public hearing for Bylaw 23-023 is now officially open. I will now ask the Supervisor of Planning and Development to review the nature of the hearing and provide an overview of what is being proposed. With that, I will throw to Hillary Jansen. Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. As mentioned, today we're going to have a public hearing for Bylaw 23-023, which is to redesignate a 5-acre title from rural commercial to business light industrial. This parcel is located just to the east of the Highway 23 and 519 traffic circle, so just to the west of the town of Nobleford. This particular area is subject to the county's municipal development plan, as well as the intermunicipal development plan between the county and the town of Nobleford. This particular area has been designated the whole frontage onto Highway 519 and going up to Highway 20 on Highway 23 also is designated for a commercial/light industrial area to service the agricultural community within Lethbridge County, and also to provide services to the traveling public if that so happens in the future. With regards to this application, in your agenda package, there was a letter submitted by the applicant requesting to redesignate this property to business light industrial, as they are looking to have some uses that are not permissible within the rural commercial area. They want to have warehousing and outdoor storage as kind of a first phase of their development, and in the future they're looking to put in a light manufacturing type facility at this particular location for their business. And so with that, the recommendation was that they move to apply for the redesignation to business light industrial to accommodate their future uses. It is in line, their application is in line with the intermunicipal development plan with the town of Nobleford, and it does meet our county's municipal development plan also. In the agenda report that I have in before you, there is a number of policies that supports this particular application. Within Section 10 of our MDP, it speaks to commercial industrial lands and where they should be appropriately located in areas along designated numbered highways, and also within areas that have been looked at in our industrial commercial land use strategy. The particular proposal that they have also would be support, as I mentioned, the agriculture community and producers, and is non-labor intensive. Within the town of Nobleford and Lethbridge County IDP, there is this area has been designated for future commercial and light industrial. We didn't receive any objections from the town with regards to this particular proposal, and so we assume they have support for this particular application. And with that, we did send out our notices to the adjacent landowners. You will note that there is a residence directly to the east of the proposed property. We didn't receive any comments from any of the adjacent landowners or with any concerns or any questions with regards to this particular application. It was also advertised in the October 17th and 24th editions of the Sunny South News, and we didn't receive any comments or concerns with regards to that particular advertisement either. So that concludes my very brief report with regards to this particular land use bylaw amendment application. And the recommendation to County Council, after closing the public hearing, would be to move forward with both second and third reading of this particular bylaw. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hillary. As this is a public hearing, this is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. I'm going to say this, but just judging from the room, doesn't look like it. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points, asked to refrain from asking questions of council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. I will skip down. I will ask, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? Is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? And a third time, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? If not, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Lauren?
I would move to close the public hearing for bylaw
Yep.
123-023.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 23-023. Any discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. We can resume our public meeting at 10:08 this morning, and I would open up to council. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that bylaw 23-023 be read a second time.
Thank you, John. John has moved that bylaw 23-023 be read a second time. Is there any discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. And third reading.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to move that bylaw 23-023 be read a third time.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved that bylaw 23-023 be read for a third time. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
I believe we have one item remaining on our agenda. We have a closed session, item H. H1, a request from the Blood Tribe, FOIP, Section 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations. With that, I would entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Morris? Morris moved to enter a closed session at 10:09 a.m. this morning. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Morris has moved to exit our closed session at 10:25 this morning. Any discussion? Call a question. In favor? Opposed? That's carried. We can resume our public meeting at 10:25 this morning. You good, Candace? I believe we've come to the end of our agenda. John?
Motion to adjourn.
John has motioned to adjourn at 10:26 this morning. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. And I believe we will transition